Hi, and welcome to Eczema Phoenix, where we learn how to transform the way we live with eczema. My name is TeresaAlabata, and today I'm going to talk about a very important topic in the eczema community, which is treatment and care for people of color or Black Indigenous people of color, BIPOC. So I was going to do my next video on skincare, but there's still another line that I'm trying out, and I still want to give it another couple of weeks before I really give my thoughts. But this topic came up as a priority at this time because I recently was asked to be a part of this focus group on the Instagram community for TSW and eczema for people of color dealing with these skin conditions and how we could receive better treatment and representation for it. I learned so much. There were so many great people on the call, people that I've seen and admired on Instagram, and I was just like honored, and I'm grateful to be asked to be a part of it. Linette, if you're watching this, thank you for asking me, and Kelly Barta of Itsen, if you watch this, thank you as well for even bringing up this whole idea and creating this focus group to talk about these really important, timely, and necessary topics. So on the focus group Zoom call, I just heard so much inspirational and impactful things that I just kept having more things to think about and say. And by the time I started to really have things to say, more people were saying things, and I'm a little bit more introverted in a group. It sort of depends too, like I didn't know a lot of the people. I was a little shy, so yeah, I'm a little bit more on the introverted side, even though I do have extroverted moments. And yeah, I just kept adding more to things I wanted to say until it just time was running out and I had to go to work. But this video is sort of my way to contribute to that conversation, as well as just contribute this topic to the conversation overall online and just out there in the world about people of color dealing with eczema. And so some thoughts I had during the call that I think could be useful in terms of treatment and what dermatologists and other health practitioners, whether on the Western or Eastern side of life, philosophy and approach, could benefit from when treating people of color. And I think a big reason why there is a struggle to properly diagnose the skin conditions of people of color, people with deeper skin tones, is that there's not, as they said in the call, there's not much representation in the literature, in dermatology books. A lot of it is shown in pictures on light skin, whether that's light skin on a white person or a Black person or a mixed person. Like, there's just not much of a range. And kind of like Fenty Beauty and Sephora is trying to do, being more inclusive, I think there needs to be more inclusivity in the representation of photos that are in dermatology books and textbooks, in the literature around eczema, and how the same sort of rash, sorry about my refrigerator, how the same sort of rash can look on different skin tones, and how like pigmentation and melanin can just change the representation, because sometimes an eczema rash on someone with a lighter skin tone can show up differently than someone on a deeper skin tone. On a lighter skin tone, usually discoloration and the pigmentation will alter and become darker on a lighter skin tone where the rash will be. But I've seen on darker skin tones that sometimes the rash looks lighter. Sometimes it represents itself as ashiness or like dryness or kind of grayness. But then the rash will look lighter on them, and just I'm sure there's science behind that. There's something going on with physiology and biology, and like the melanocytes. I believe that's the proper scientific term for melanin cells, or just the cells that create our pigmentation, our level of pigmentation. There's something that changes there, and I'm sure somebody out there knows how that that works, in the science of that. And so that changes, and that needs to be addressed. And that, I mean, the thing is, I think the information is out there. We know how the skin works. Like, we know how it works. It's just not discussed. It's not really explained, and it's not discussed in the context of different skin tones. but I believe the information must be out there. Otherwise, what's dermatology about if they don't know how like the skin works and skin tone, skin color, the depth of this of how the skin looks has to be a part of that because melanin protects us from the sun. It has a function. So, I mean, the information's out there. Someone just needs to translate it into layman's terms and in relation to skin tone and race. So that's one thought I had about that. I think also because there's the unfamiliarity about how the same skin condition can look on different skin tones. A lot of doctors, probably mostly white or lighter skin, but I would think that even there would be some people of color who would shy away from really looking at, say, black skin or just deeper tan skin to really like look at it, like stare at it, like study it, and really figure out, what is expressing itself in the skin. Like, what is this rash? What is this discoloration? What is this pigmentation or mark or whatever that's showing up, or this scar? And I think there's a lot of social implication with that. I think, like, particularly in a situation where you may have a white doctor looking at a black eczema patient, there's just more than the skin going on there. There's like the social aspect, the historical aspect, and black people, from what I gather, I'm not a black person obviously, but I have some black friends and I work with a lot of black customers, and I just sense a lot of discomfort with being stared at. No one wants to be stared at, but black people particularly get stared at a lot more because of historical stigma, because of slavery, and because of the poverty they've experienced from that, and just sort of today's world is an extension of the slavery, and slavery in kind of indirect ways. Well, I don't know, it's like direct, but it's sort of indirect because it's just systematic. It's not like, obviously I'm the people in power, who happen to mostly be white still at this time, they they aren't like directly saying, hey, I'm going to continue to enslave you through poverty, but it's like their ancestors at least set up the system of the current governments that allow that. And then the social stigma and expectation that, I don't know, like black people are gonna, I don't know, always have high crime rates or this or that. And it's just more like, it sucks. It's so deep. Like, this is why I couldn't talk on the Zoom call, because this is all I wanted to say, and it runs so much deeper than just a doctor's visit or just, looking at different skin tones with the same rash. It's like the whole social aspect, the whole system that's in place right now around socialization. It affects the whole experience, and it affects people's receptivity to looking at all skin tones and expanding their minds to find a different way of interacting with people of color, because the world is not colorblind. We see the color, and there have been certain ethnic and social and historical implications associated with that color, which affects any person's ability to treat a person of a different skin tone truly equal, unless they've grown up with them or they have been socialized with them, and they have been able to break through or just be able to get to that point where they can just see them, excuse me, just had lunch, as a human being, and so when there's this dynamic of, like, for example, not all the time, but the general stereotype will be like, like a white doctor with a black patient. I sense that the white doctor, both will be unfamiliar, so then they're gonna feel afraid of staring. They won't want to seem rude. They won't want to seem like they're staring at the black person or the darker skin, for those social reasons, for those stigmatic reasons, for the reasons that are associated with, like, seeing them as possibly lower class or having a higher likelihood of being involved in some sort of crime or what, I don't know, being ghetto, or whatever that means now. Everyone's sort of talking the same these days, but you know, that's a part of it. You know, it's where we came from. It's better now, but it wasn't that long ago that that was still such a thing. I still remember growing up in the 1990s and even to 2000s where just people were surprised that I could speak perfect English. I even had comments that from people that I worked with, like, "Oh, I didn't know you were Filipino because you had perfect grammar in your email." Like, it's like I've dealt with stuff like that before, um, or like people who think I might be Chinese, and then so certain people have Asian fetishes and stuff like that, uh, and so like that, things like that go into the experience of like visiting a health practitioner possibly, and and trying to trust somebody to treat you who may not have your experience or even be educated in your skin tone and how to treat it, how to read it, how to see it, how to accurately diagnose the symptoms that are showing up in your skin. And that's big. I also think that seeing things from the doctor's point of view, because I know that online there's a lot of perspective shown from the patient's point of view, which I'm so happy and proud of, and I'm so happy to have been a part of it and to continue to be a part of it. We need to keep sharing our stories. We need to keep sharing our pictures and showing people what's up, and sharing the experience, because we need that. I don't see as much from the perspective or the potential perspective from a doctor's point of view, or a lighter skinned person's point of view dealing with people of color and eczema. And I honestly, this is going to be more just me coming from what I sense as an empath and an intuitive person. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But what I sense from certain doctors, and in my experience, like seeing doctors before for my eczema who would just prescribe me steroid creams and have that really be the only treatment option, is that they spend so much time learning and investing in their education. They are taught a limited amount about eczema. I've heard from other people who know, like dermatology students, that they literally got like 2 hours of eczema education in like a decade of education in total, like 2 days. 2 days. And a lot of doctors I've heard could spend a whole decade, 10 years, learning about the skin and continuing to learn. So that just shows you how much is known about eczema and how to treat it. And it doesn't make it a surprise that steroid prescriptions are like the only prescription, or like the go-to, or the first thing that they recommend, and the only thing that they can really confidently recommend. They spend all that time learning. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time, and I would think that if I was a dermatology student, by the time I graduated and I put all my blood, sweat, and tears and all that investment, that I would just be very proud of what I learned, and that a lot of us coming out of school just assume that what we've learned so far is all we need to know. I remember coming out of high school, coming out of college, thinking I knew it all, until I had more life experience and realized that there's always another viewpoint. There's always an exception to the rule. There's always more to learn, and I will never know it all, and I don't have to. I personally love a little mystery. So for dermatology students, especially the new ones, I sense that they are proud of what they've accomplished. Getting a PhD is very hard. It takes a long time, and realizing, or like experiencing real life, it's like a tough slap to the face. Like when you're presented with a patient and you see a skin symptom that you learned, that all you have to do is prescribe this one steroid cream, or just different steroid creams, and keep describing more and more steroids to treat this, that's what you know, so that's what you do, and you don't know any better. And so when you keep seeing the same patient and they're still not healing, all you know is that one thing. All you know is that one approach. There's nothing else. And then you have they may have some pride around just how much they learned, because I'm sure they learn a lot about other sort of life or death, cancerous skin conditions that are really important, that require surgery. And thank God for that. I mean, that's important. But eczema is not life or death. Like, no one's ever died from eczema itself. People have taken their own lives because they want to stop feeling the pain. People have murdered their parents for having them because their parents had eczema, which guaranteed that they would have eczema. I mean, that happened. I'll leave a link to the article. It was like, I think a girl in China or Hong Kong or something, and she just was resentful, but it was never eczema itself. It was like, it got to people psychologically, it got to people socially, like feeling isolated and alone, which is why it's so important for us to continue to share stories and show that there's a lot of people going through this. But I would think as a doctor, it would be really hard to realize what you learned, what you were taught to be the go-to solution to help people is not the solution. And it can be probably a tough blow to your ego to realize that there's actually something, as a professional, as an expert, as someone with a PhD or MD or whatever your credential is, that you still don't know how to heal, even though you have all this knowledge, even though you have all of this expertise and a network and all of that. Everything that you believed in is not coming true. And so it seems like there could be a block there for certain doctors who are not open-minded to continuing to learn about things outside of the medical community, things that the medical community does not know anything about, that they need more direct patient information and feedback on, but might be too proud to, because that would essentially put a lot more power into the patient's hands instead of the doctor's hands or the pharmaceutical companies' hands, who incentivize doctors to prescribe their drugs and their steroid creams. And so in that sense, I feel kind of sorry for doctors who can't treat eczema, because the answer is so simple. It's just like, get more patient information, like get more direct patient experiences, feedback, information. Talk to patients who are healing naturally. Talk to patients who are recovering, not just people like me, just anyone who's made it past the rashes, with or without prescriptions. Ideally without, because prescriptions can only take you so far. They can really take a toll on the liver over time. But then again, I haven't really kept up with them, so maybe there's a new one that's like, I don't know, like pretty gentle. If so, let me know about it. I'd love to read more about it. But as far as I know, in my own experience and the experience of people that I've talked to in the community online, there's just such a frustration because we have so many examples of people healing naturally from eczema, just changing their diet, their lifestyle, nutrition, stress management, incorporating maybe some herbs with an experienced practitioner or herbalist or someone who's had results and great experiences over time. And there's so many people healing. There's so many people healing without steroids, with no steroids or any kind of prescription drugs. So, I don't know, I kind of feel like I went on a tangent, but I hope there were some things of value. I hope that more doctors will be more open-minded and getting patient feedback on their experience, and to be open-minded even though if those patients say that those steroids don't work. In terms of being a person of color, I mean, it's just education. It's the unfamiliarity, it's the unknown that makes it scary for doctors to go there, to really explore it, to really ask about it, to know what to do. And then there's the pride of, why I spent like a decade getting this degree. I studied so much and so hard. I jumped through hoops and hurdles to get this PhD, and I still can't heal. Like, I thought when I was going to get this degree, I was just going to be, I don't know, I was just going to heal the world. Like, I would think some doctors would feel like, have that confidence. Maybe some have some cockiness, but then to be hit with real life and realizing that this is that one thing that they just can't heal with what they know is hard. And the more we can make it familiar, the more that we can make skin of color in relation to eczema rashes more familiar, the more we can communicate and be open to each other's life experiences, and the better it can be. But there's just like so much to it, like with people of color, and then like white people, and then history, and like cultural stereotypes, and like the like movies and media and pop culture don't help. They've perpetuated them for so long. It's getting a little better now. I'm starting to see us turn a corner, though we are turning slowly. It is a turn, and we gotta just keep it going. We need to like hit the accelerator on this turning point, because it has been needed. It has been needed for a while. I think that if you are a white or lighter skinned practitioner, a doctor, you know, there's just a lot to unpack, man. I feel for you too. It's a lot to just have lived a certain way, to have grown up with certain influences and beliefs, and that perpetuated in like childhood TV shows and movies and music and all these kinds of things, and to find that to be normal, to think it was normal, and then now suddenly in the past couple of years, I feel like it's been building up for a while. But particularly, I've noticed the biggest change around 2018, where like just people were like filming these murders of black men by police officers, by white or light skinned police officers, and it's heavy. And it's heavy what white people, or lighter skinned white passing people, have to unpack. You know, we're all taught this, you know, to a degree. I realize even I've been raised with unconscious bias, and I'm constantly trying to heal it in any way possible. And you know, it's affecting us all, and it's a lot, but this is just one of many conversations we need to have. We need to make the representation of people of color more and more familiar and more safe, because just because we want to be seen does not mean we want to take out white people. It doesn't mean we want to be like those racist white people from the past who wanted to own slaves and thought that was normal to enslave other human beings who have their own lives and their own property and their own identity. You know, it's not like that anymore, and I see white allies, and I have white friends who get it, and they don't do the whole all lives matter BS rebuttal. So I know that there is hope. I know that we can do this. I know that the necessary changes in healing are starting to take foothold. The roots are starting to form. Like, we are doing this now. It's happening now, and it's going to benefit everyone. And there's no actual threat to making space and making room for people of color to be seen alongside white people. Like, we're not trying to take over the world. We're not trying to enslave white people or anything like that. We're not trying to, it's not payback time. It's just, we're trying to even the playing field so that everyone, including white people, are represented, that everyone, including white people, are represented, everyone, including Asian people, Hispanic people, Native people, like, just so that, you know, Islanders, like, everyone can be represented together. And that is the goal of all of this. I really hope that this made sense and had value, and I hope that doctors will be more humble and be more open and willing to just hear different perspectives and be open to learning new ways to heal people. And then for like the people who are jaded, you know, I was kind of one of them, like the people who are jaded in this community about pharmaceutical companies, and the pharmaceutical companies who are just thinking about money in terms of like the prescription drugs, and like the kind of products that they want to make and sell to people. I just want to say, like, if you create products that boost the immune system, that prevent, you know, horrible rashes from happening, also if you include people of color in your representation and in, you know, in your treatment practices, I just want to say, even if you just saw it from a monetary and financial point of view, if for those who are just driven by money, for companies that are just driven by money, you will have such a larger pool of customers and a larger market to sell to if you sell products that truly heal, that truly benefit us and prevent long-term disease from happening. Because instead of selling your products in a system of handicapping your customers and making them like codependent or like addicted to your products. You could sell products that make us superhuman, that make us stronger, that prevent, you know, disease and our immunities from going down, that make our skin more resilient, that make our hair more stronger, that turn us into superheroes, superhuman people. You know, people will buy that too. That's also a value. That will also be a ongoing, long-term beneficial kind of business model to have. You don't always have to have people addicted to your products to sell them. You really don't. Some people, a lot of people now are really interested in their health. They're very interested in prevention, and they're very, you know, they desire to be beautiful and to feel able-bodied. And the more able-bodied, the more energetic, the more stronger you make us, the more we will want that product to keep us up, to keep us up leveled. You know, that needs to be the new health business model. That needs to be the new health business model. No longer a business model built on weakness and addiction, but one built on prevention and strengthening. Like, that needs to be the new business model for health. That needs to be the new goal for medical and health companies and practitioners. That has to be what your selling point is. That has to be what you sell to us. A stronger immune system, more resilient skin, faster recovery rates from all illnesses, stronger, thicker, fuller hair. So I really hope that somebody in the medical community hears this and listens to this seriously, or a pharmaceutical company, because that is the new wave. As we're turning a point in race and humanity and how we treat each other, we must also make a turning point in just all of our systems, including the health system. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. I do appreciate your time. You're amazing. And if you like this video, please like. And if you want to see more, please subscribe. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.